It was called Noodles Near Me. And when you went to Google, he typed in Noodles Near Me. It's the first thing that showed up. I'm like, that is freaking brilliant because all you're thinking is noodles, not that specific spot. But I was like, I freaking love that. Use tools like search engine, use tools like AI, use tools like Uber Suggest to be able to come up with, okay, this is kind of like the niche that I want to focus in, and this is how I'm going to position it so that people can organically find it. Like AI can get you 80% of the way there. And if you're really good at it, it can get you even closer, right? And so I'm not telling people like, here's the thing, a lot of people are like, oh, it's killing all of our creativity. I'm like, no, it's not. It's taking away the excuse of, oh, I can't really do that. Like now you can. And the reason I'm on Google right now, like you don't have to do all this, but like if that's the topic we're going to pick, I always like to kind of go somewhere just to see, is anyone even searching for this? I always look at people also ask. Google will often show those results. And what age is your body in the best shape? People are asking these questions. These are topics that you can cover because because Google is showing these that people are asking these exact questions. Every time you click one to expand it, it opens more that are somewhat related.
You're listening to the Real Business Connections Network. Real Business Connections Network. Powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. Subscribe now and check us out at realbusinessconnections.com. Enjoy the show.
Alex Sanfilippo. We're going to, we kind of talked about this beforehand. We'll see what happens. But let's create a podcast from scratch. We haven't done any prep. We're going to create a podcast from scratch today in about 45 minutes. Do you think that's possible?
Ben, I'm glad to be here. And yes. And dude, when we talked about this just a couple days ago, but I was so tempted to start because I'm like, that sounds fun. I haven't built a podcast in a long time. I want to, right? So I'm thrilled to be here, man. But yeah, I think it's possible. Let's make it happen.
We'll collaborate. I'm going to give you the lead on it. But before we dive into that, I wanted to just nerd out on one thing because just yesterday I did my pod score. It's like podscore.io. What is PodScore? Tell me what that is real quick.
Yeah, it's a podcaster quiz that gives you your personality type based on data. But more importantly, it tells you how much of your potential you've unleashed as a podcaster. It gives you an exact percentage based off of the data for what you're doing compared to what kind of the most successful we're doing or accumulation of those successful we're doing. Talk to 1,600 podcasters to get the data. And the idea is no one's ever going to get 100%. And if you did, it would be terrible because it means you're out of room to grow, right? So the idea is it just can give you some very custom tailored next steps you can take to increase your percentage and likelihood of making and reaching your goals as a podcaster.
How do you think I did?
You probably got, I'm going to say 64%.
You know what? I don't have the percentage in front of me, but it said you're a polished pro.
Well, okay. I wouldn't think of the personality. Sorry.
Yeah.
The first, that actually makes a lot of sense. You've been on my show and crushed it. Polished pro is that's what I want to be. That's what you are. So pretty cool.
And there's only two numbers I wrote down, and you're going to have to help me because I'm weak at one of these things. It gave me a 95% abilities as a host. And then podcasting toolkit, I got a 13%. So if we're going to create a podcast together, I'm hoping you can help me out on the toolkit because apparently I can host, but I don't have the right tools.
Yeah, well, we'll figure that out.
Anyways, podscore.io or whatever it is. So
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
If we were to start a podcast, where do we start? Is it something I love? Is it the audience? What's our first move, bro?
Yeah, and we'll probably go really fast with this because it's not super tangible. This first part here specifically, which is I always say start with why. And then create an avatar off that why. And we're going to do something fictitious, so we don't really have the time to spend weeks on end of self-reflection and stuff. But I always tell people start that way. If you already feel like you know what it should be, still go back and say, okay, why do I feel this way? Why do I want to do this? And then write out the avatar. Okay, who does this really serve? And I think that you and I just kind of need to jump into it because we can't sit here and turn this into a hour-long meditation practice or anything like that, right? That'd be cool, but that we can't, that's not really what we're here for. But I always tell people start with why, and then immediately right off that, build the avatar, the ideal listener, the person you say it's going to serve. And that to me is step one.
Cool. So you've been in the podcast world for a while. You've done a lot of things. Is there any kind of podcast that you haven't started, but you think you have a strong enough why that you could?
Right now, my podcast is about podcasting. So I'm in that space, but I was thinking what we could do is we could go over to Google Trends and just find something that's trending, if that's cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here, I just loaded up, but I'll share the screen, but we're going to make sure that we make this valuable for anyone listening as well. So I'm not going to single you out.
You go to more share screen. Yeah. And this is on YouTube for the listeners, but it'll make sense whether or not you see the screen.
So I just went to google.com/trends. It redirects to trends.google.com/trends. They should work on that URL. And I'm not even going to explore. I'm not going to like actually explore custom. I'm just going to hit the explore button and we'll just find something that makes sense to you and I really fast here. So I just hit the explore button, search topics, search queries. Let's just look at any of these that are rising and see if anything in here makes sense at all. I mean, the Copa America stuff, but that's almost over. Chat GTP, that seems like it's probably a bit over exhausted at this point, right? Tell me if anything on here seems interesting to you so far. Did you see Godzilla -1? That was a good movie. I don't know if I want to make a podcast over it, but that was an interesting movie. I like the Japanese Godzilla. It was fun. Taylor Swift is on here. That's Chiefs are on here. All kinds of fun things, huh?
Pubs, yeah.
I don't know if you're seeing anything that looks interesting, but
it's a lot of current events.
Yeah, and that's something that you are gonna find for sure.
Do you think there's value on putting out a podcast about current events?
I think that there is if you really are like passionate.
Octua. There you go.
Sweet. I'm going to skip that one. Just recently learned about that a week ago and have no idea. I think that the current event ones can be good. I find that people like sizzle out very quick. But if you're like ready to go all in, like you have to really go all in. Like I see presidential debate, like that's doesn't have a long lifespan. But if you're like really passionate about it and you want to share something on it, you can. Just you have to keep in mind that it's not going to like do super well for a long period of time. So again, if you don't have an area of passion, like I'm not telling people to go do this. I was hoping we'd find something that seemed interesting to me, but air conditioning is trending right now in the United States. So that, makes sense. I live in Florida. Everyone's AC breaks at the beginning of every summer is what happens. So, we've got like a lot. Yeah. Like you said, a lot of this stuff is definitely current events. I think you can go through and even categorize it differently, but not that I'm telling people to do it that way, right? Like I'm just looking for anything here that looks, Xbox server status. You can learn a lot about the world on this page, by the way. I'm like, what's going on in the world? Like, we got all kinds of things. Fireworks. We got all kinds.
Maybe this is a philosophical question, but we're on Google Trends. Should we be starting with a trend? Does that have anything to do with our core why? Is that the right way to do it?
I don't think so. It can like maybe to validate if it's like really niche, but like here's the thing: if you're passionate about personal development for men in their 40s, right? Like that are like at that point where the like lives and bodies are changing, right? Like that's probably never going to be on here, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't dive into it. People are interested in it, but it's probably never going to be like the real thing here. Yeah, I don't know if I'd say that it should, but anyway, there's all kinds of things here. You know, I just saw the other day that might be an interesting one. Do you have any thoughts on? We were talking about technology and stuff. I just typed that in. But do you have any thoughts on the Cybertruck? I just saw one the other day. Like, what if that was could we pick that as a topic? Just because I just saw one drive by.
Yeah, that's the Tesla new.
You don't know anything about it. We can skip it. Yeah, it's Tesla, but we can skip that one if you don't know anything about it. I literally just saw one. So I'm like,
this is a bigger question. So a lot of the listeners, they might already have a podcast. They might be considering a podcast, a series. Can you start an entire podcast on the Cybertruck, or is that more like an episode?
I think you could start one on it.
And just like
it could be an episode
development of it, or how?
Well, let me. I don't know how to spell it. Cybertruck. Is it one word or two? There are two words.
Might be one.
Maybe not.
Oh, you have a Cyper. You got a Cybertruck.
There we go.
ChatGPT's making my grammar even worse than it's ever been because it just
corrects
everything for me. Yeah, I just type in gibberish and it knows what I'm.
So here's what we typed in. I actually like this as an example because we typed in Cybertruck now that I spelt it correctly, and it's out. Like I literally saw one drive by, so you can very quickly see a bunch of topics. Like Kid Rock must have bought a Cybertruck. You could do an episode about that. General Lee Cybertruck. You could talk about all these people that have them or recalls. You could dive into that, right? Like there's a lot of things you could cover if you did a podcast like this. So I may get a solo episode and really short, but you can get a bunch of different like a different type of topics to cover right here. Is there a Chinese Cybertruck? That's a question that's obviously coming up. Like, is that a thing? You can do that with anything. So even if you do have a like really narrow niche, which we should pick something that I guess is more specific. If you have an idea, let me know, man. We'll kind of dive into it from there. So if you have a show, what you can kind of do with it, and use like something like Google Trends to be able to help you understand like how to do it even better. We could definitely dive into that. But let me know the next step you want to take here, man. Because Cybertruck can be a topic, or if you know something more specific, let's hit it
you
up.
had mentioned like fitness, men in their 40s. I'm in my
Yeah.
30s, but one thing I'll
Me
tell
too.
you is at the time of this release, I've been working out for about a year, and that's after 32 years of basically not working out. So fitness is new to me that I feel like I'm at a beginner level, but I'm passionate enough about it that could do a podcast on it. And you're in great shape, so I assume you take good care of yourself.
Yeah. Thank you. I do. I work out. I've been working out for a long time. Never to like, I'm not like trying to compete or get huge or anything like that, but I like to be healthy and fit, and I feel the best this way. So yeah, um, that might be a good topic, like adult fitness routine. Just to see what comes up. I just Googled that, so I typed
Mhm.
in adult fitness routine just to see like what shows up, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely like there's a lot of results here. There's gonna be tons of them. Like it's gonna go on for all of eternity. But like
How's this for an idea? Best shape of your life in your middle ages.
yeah, let's just type that so it comes in. Best shape of your life in your what would you say?
Middle ages.
So yeah, I mean that's actually like that's pretty niche. And then here's what I like. And the reason I'm on Google right now, like you don't have to do all this, but like if that's the topic we're gonna pick, I always like to kind of go somewhere just to see is anyone even searching for this. I always look at people also ask. Google will
Mm.
often show those results. And what age is your body in the best shape? People are asking these questions. These are topics that you can cover because Google is showing these that people are asking these exact questions. Every time you click one to expand it, it opens more that are somewhat related, right? Like
I
here's a
like that
question:
I'm seeing I like
is
that I'm seeing Reddit ask men over 30. So there's a whole Reddit thread of people talking about this over 30.
and by the way, there's your audience.
Yeah.
If there's a thread on that, you go in there when you have episodes and answer questions with the episodes. But like here's one: is 35 too late to get fit? I would literally make that the title of an episode.
Right.
And then who knows? Maybe you're the answer that Google uses. Maybe Google is like, oh, here's the answer. Ben jumped into it. Ben and Alex covered that exact topic. Here's the episode of that, right? And you can go to that Reddit thread. It's Ask Men Over 30 is the Reddit thread. Yeah, dude, like there's probably a great opportunity to be answering the questions and saying, oh, I just recorded an episode about that exact thing. Anyway, where do we go from here, man? What steps do you want to go into?
So we have an idea. We want to be in the best shape of our life in our middle ages. Let's unshare the screen.
Yep.
What do we name it? Because I don't know if best shape of my life in my middle ages. That seems very long tail. And is there what would we call it?
Yeah, another reason I like search engines and stuff is because some like blog posts and stuff that rank really high have good names, at least can help with it. But I would also ask, I'd ask AI on this one to give you some ideas. And you're much better at the prompts, man. I don't know if you want to share your screen and like ask, because I would probably be like, hey, what's a good name for a podcast on this topic? And I'm not going to use I never use exactly what AI gives me, but it's probably because I'm not good at the prompts. But I
Mhm.
would go through and start at least getting a list of ideas because that would help inspire some inspiration around like, okay, what are people typing? What are they searching for? Um, like there's one blog post here that I'm saying it's called middle-aged men getting in the best shape of your life. And like that might like a good thing might be like how to get in the best shape of your life as a middle-aged man. Like it's a long podcast title, but what I like about it is it's descriptive. It tells you exactly like there's no question as to what that podcast is about, right? Like, is this about walking like dog walking or what's this about? No, it's straight about getting in the best shape. So what do you got on your end, man? Anything interesting?
I asked ChatGPT to give me 10 podcast titles. Best shape of my life in my middle ages. Let's see. Focus on a theme of achieving the best physical shape during middle age. Creating engaging, inspiring, and relatable titles. Okay. Midlife fitness, transforming your body after 40. Strong at any age. Mastering midlife fitness. That's gotta ring
That one's
to
got
it.
a good ring to it.
Yeah.
That one's actually I hate the colon that they use in these things because I feel
Yeah.
like that gives up that it's AI. Like that's the tell of AI. Is there a colon in the title? But like if you just remove the colon, it would actually work, right? Strong at any age,
I-
mastering midlife. It's probably still work fine.
My favorite AI is when it's like unleash the power of game changing results or something like
Yeah,
that.
like words that humans don't use. There's a lot of that, right? Like
Fit at
that's a
50.
dude, let's just go. That one's a good one, dude. You want to go with that one? I think that's good.
Strong at any age. Mastering midlife fitness. I'd be
Let me,
curious if midlife fitness is a term.
let me go over to Google and just type it in.
Strong at any age, mastering midlife fitness.
I mean, it came up, they had like their Google's AI mentions what it is. I don't think it's nearly as popular, which might is a search term. I'd have to go to like one of the tools like Uber Suggest. Uber Suggest is just one that gives you it's not 100% accurate, but ubersuggest.com or neilpatel.com/Uber Suggest. Either way, it will get you there. You can type in like a keyword and you can see how well it does. Basically like how many people are searching for it and all that. So I'm just typing in midlife fitness to see like, is there any actual search for it? It shows it's trended in more recent times. So it might actually be coming up. The search volume is fairly low and the SEO difficulty is rated pretty high. So it's like hard to actually rank for that. And it looks like it's because like local search is being factored in. So here's the thing, real quick. Like I know we don't need to spend too much time on this side of it exactly, but I do think this is really important. A lot of people skip it. And I spoke at a podcasting conference on this exact topic specifically, and it's unleashing organic results for your podcast. The most common way podcasts are found is through search. So people actually typing in what they're looking for. And here's the thing: if we just call this, because Ben, you're more like recent to fitness, right? If we call this the Ben 2.0 show, because that's kind of what it is, nobody knows what that means.
No.
And like, so it's not a bad thing if that's the name you want, but just know no one's ever going to type in Ben 2.0 looking for a midlife fitness show, right? Like the chances of that happening are very slim. So I always tell people like the titles, the descriptions, the cover art of your podcast and your episodes is key because if you position it right, it can absolutely crush it. At one point, I had a faith-based podcast. I sold the company, sold the podcast. I didn't mean to do this, but I titled it Good Christian Podcast. And I titled that because the tagline was, we're not saying we're always good Christians, but this is always a good podcast for Christians to listen to. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought it sounded fun, kind of sounded cute, but tons of people were Googling Good Christian Podcast, not for my show. They were looking for a good Christian podcast. So it became actually like the top 3 biggest of all Christian podcasts, like almost overnight. And all I did was position it to be received organically really well. And so that's one example of why I'm kind of passionate about this. And that's why I tell people like, hey, yeah, if you figure out your why, you figure out your avatar, spend some time on what people are actually going to type in, what they're actually going to look for. Name of those things. Use tools like search engine, use tools like AI, use tools like Uber Suggest to be able to come up with, okay, this is kind of like the niche that I want to focus in. And this is how I'm going to position it so that people can organically find it. I'm going on a little rant here, but man, I'm telling you, like, there's something here that I think a lot of us in podcasting don't really take into consideration.
I think it's brilliant. What's coming to mind is like roofer near me, contractor near me. And then you have a podcast on how to market your roofing business to your clients in your local area. And then if you're a marketing company that works with the roofers, like boom. But that's what the people type in, roofer near me. Exactly.
Dude,
what
that's
people
so
type
funny
in.
you say that. My buddy, he went to New York and he was in like the Hell's Kitchen area. And there was a restaurant. It was like a noodle restaurant. And it was called Noodles Near Me. And when he went to Google, he typed in noodles near me. It's the first thing that showed up. I'm like, that is freaking brilliant. Because all you're thinking is noodles, not that specific spot. But I was like, I freaking love that. So I want to open a restaurant, call it Restaurant Near Me or Restaurants Near Me, right? Like crush your local market. I don't know if it really works like that. It's kind of an extreme example, but you kind of get the idea here.
You need to set something up, worldsgreatestpodcaster.com.
Wow.
World's greatest podcaster, Alex
And
Sanfilippo.
it's me. Wow. Yeah. I'll follow your lead on that one, bro. All right.
So strong at any age, mastering midlife. I feel like middle-age fitness. Because wouldn't someone Google like mastering middle-age fitness? Where would they type in midlife?
Yeah. No, maybe they type in like fitness after 40 even, right? Like, and I would specifically, personally, I would add the word male or men to it because let's be like the male and female body are extremely different. I'm not going to get into the anatomy of all that, right? Someone else can talk to your teacher, right? They can help you with that. But for me, like I just know like men after 40 and women after 40 are extremely different. So I would even want to narrow it down like, hey, this is strictly for dudes that are just trying to stay fit, right? And so I would add the word men or man or male in it somewhere, just so like that's in there. But I think that, yeah, like staying fit or getting fit over 40 or how men can stay fit over 40. Like, I don't know if you want how in there, but yeah, midlife, I don't know. I think I would skip that word.
So strong at any age, fit after 40 for men.
Fit after 40 for men. The next thing I'm going to look at here is like, are there any podcasts with that name? So I'm just going to open my Apple podcast app real quick and make sure that's not taken. I always like to do that as well. So you're not like now competing. Let's see. Shows nothing. Not even anything close. The Fit Mess is the closest one to it. So Fit After 40 for Men. I think that's a really strong name for a show. And I bet people will actually search for that.
Is 40 middle age? I feel like I'm having a midlife crisis in my 30s already, man.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's a 40 is when people start asking questions, right? I don't know what age any of that is. So I thought 50 was like, are we trying to live to 100? Like, what's the goal here? Like, I think we all define our own midlife, right?
Yeah. Somewhere between 65 and 120. It's pretty.
60 is my midlife. That's the middle year. I think that, this is good. Cool. So from there, like what we need is a good, strong description to go with it. And you already mentioned the tagline, right? Like the initial tagline. I'd probably keep that up top with it. But same thing. I would go to chat. I call it Chatty because it's easier for me to say. So Chat GTP. I call it Chatty. So I would go to Chatty and just say, here's the name of the show. Like, and you know to do that. Like I'm giving you your own advice. Like you would do this really well and you'd have a better prompt than I would. And just let it give you some ideas. And here's the thing. It's going to put in some words like that humans don't use that we'll have to filter out, but it gives you a good baseline. And for people that are like, oh, I'm not good at naming things, man, the days of having those excuses, man, those are kind of behind us now. Like AI can get you 80% of the way there. And if you're really good at it, it can get you even closer, right? And so I'm not telling people like, here's the thing, a lot of people are like, oh, it's killing all of our creativity. I'm like, no, it's not. It's taking away the excuse of, oh, I can't really do that. Like now you can. Like you can come up with a really good high ranking description by just making a few tweaks to something that will give you a good baseline. So I'm letting you run with that. You're much better at AI than I am.
Well, we're not going to get too deep in the weeds to do every little step, but we'll assume we did. But what I've done in the past, Jordan Harbinger is a great example. I love the way he writes his intros. I love the way they write the descriptions. I'll take like 3 to 5 lookalike podcasters, take their descriptions, pop it into ChatGPT, and then give it my keywords, and then ask ChatGPT to write a description in the same style as the lookalikes. So they already kind of created the framework. We don't even know what the framework is half the time, but they created it, and then we input our information, then ChatGPT will spit out something unique to us in a similar framework to that lookalike podcast.
Dude, that's great. So we got the title, we got the description. What's next? Where are we at?
What is next? I mean, cover art, obviously. Right? We need to find a way to actually get it on the feeds, right?
Yeah. So, and to do that, you have to have two things: cover art and an initial episode. So those like the last two pieces of the puzzle here. The cover art, dude. I've become I love your cover art because it stands out. You use colors that stand out really well. Like when you're scrolling through, and in addition to that, like the words on it are big, and you don't have like your tagline and stuff like that. Because some people they put like their whole bio on it. I'm like, do you realize how small the devices are that people are reading that on?
Tiny, yeah.
Just get the key words out there, right? Like, there's I'm gonna find this, but like, what do you use to make this stuff? Like Canva, or would you hire somebody? Like what, or would you use AI? Like, what is your suggestion on this?
I mean, laziest suggestion ever, and probably why I got a 13% on Podcast Toolkit is I hire freelancers for everything. I find someone who's done it 50 times, and 51 is going to be their best time, and I just collaborate with them.
I love it, dude. That's good. I'm gonna try to find this website, see if I can find it real quick here, that lets you see your cover art compared to other people's cover art. Do you know what I'm talking about there?
Not a clue, no.
Okay, here it is. I just found it. It's onlypod.com/podcast-cover-preview. And I'll put it in the chat so that you can see this real quick, because I think that you'll like this. What it allows you to do, and I'm talking to Ben with the chat side of things, but yeah, onlypod.com/podcast-cover-preview. What it allows you to do is put in your podcast. You type in your podcast title. And if your show's not live, you can't do this yet, but after you're live, you can always tweak the cover art. It puts your podcast next to like really big popular podcasts. And what I like about that is it gives you the chance to just kind of see, okay, where do I hold up? Does it look the same, right? And so I always like doing that as well. It's like, okay, yeah, my podcast looks like it could fit among that group. So, but anyway, hire a freelancer, use Canva, something like that, but just make it really clean. Like, don't get into too much detail, too much thought about it. one of my buddies, he recently just is a what is it? It's a green background with white text, like a dark green with white text, and all it says is the name of the podcast. There's no like fancy thing. It took up like all edge to edge. I'm like, that stands out more than most very highly produced podcast cover art. So
let me ask you about that, because that's my one big question on this area of the process here. A lot of people say use your face. Faces are friendly. They're going to get to know you. It's your podcast. They're going to stay for you. Other people say don't use your face. Just put the words in big letters. Like a client of mine, digital marketing for coaches and consultants. That's her podcast cover art. Which one? Like, do I put my face because I'm the host? Do I not? Like, podcasting made simple doesn't have your face because it's not about you. It's about the topic. What are your thoughts?
Dude, I think that's the key. Like, what's the focus of the show? Yours is about connections. People want to see you as the guy they're connecting with. I think having your picture on the cover art is smart. Podcasting made simple. I'm not even on most episodes. Having my picture there would be confusing. What we're talking about now with like fitness, right? Like over 40 or middle age, whatever we call it, right? Like, I think that the important thing there is to make sure that people can connect with somebody, right? So I would put somebody, probably you look a little too young, so I would probably not even use you. Like maybe put a human face, but it isn't you. But I don't know if that's okay or if there's a couple people.
I think
I don't know, man.
Confusing. One thing that comes to mind, and we'll add these to the show notes, but the Model Health Show is a great example because Sean Stevenson, he's great looking and he's got an awesome looking body. So it's a picture of him just looking really good. I don't look good enough to be flexing like that. So
he has a really good cover art though. You're right.
Yeah.
The words are big. It's got him on it. I think that's really well done.
Yeah.
You could always like come up with an AI version yourself that has like a shredded like 12 pack, like I'm just kidding. Anyway, cover art. Yeah. Like, I don't know if there's really a right or wrong way, but like to me, if you're like the center of it, then I think it should have you on it. And here's the other thing, man, like people that are trying to get fit, like if that's what this is about, right? They might not resonate with him. Like they might take one look at him and be like, I'm never going to look like that. Like my body isn't even shaped that way. Right. And they might resonate with somebody, and not saying you're not fit, but like someone who isn't like absolutely shredded, like ready to like run a marathon any given second. Right. They might resonate more with like, this person looks healthy. I like that.
That's a really good point because someone who's been lifetime fit probably isn't like overly concerned with being fit in my middle age. They've already been fit their entire life. Someone who's searching for fit in middle ages possibly was unfit and now they're trying to get fit in their middle ages. So it's a different audience. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's good. So I would say in the like big words, you in the picture. I think that'd be smart.
So you said we need an episode before we can publish.
Yeah, we need something. So there has to be like, it's only a podcast when there's some sort of audio. And a lot of people like have this one with like taking their mic test. Is this thing on? And that's their first episode. Like, don't waste it. Like, come up with a real trailer. So I typed in the name of our podcast into Google. Again, I'm using Google a lot, but like Google's results are based off of humans interaction based on these words, right? So like we can learn a lot from it. So I typed in fit after 40 for men, and I look at the people also ask. So again, it's a section that regularly comes up on Google. One of the questions here is, can you really get fit after 40? To me, that is like the best intro to this show. Because someone's going to say fit after 40 for men. Can you really do it? That's going to be the question. So if you just make a solo episode, hey, if it was both of us, hey, Alex and Ben here, we're here together to talk about just this whole notion of, can you really get fit after the age of 40? We're going to share our own experience and thoughts. And in future episodes, we'll have people on that have actually accomplished this. Spoiler alert type of thing, right? And we just make it that's the episode. So somebody now it's on a feed, right? Like at that point we post it, like people can say, oh yeah, that's my question. And oh yeah, they're answering it. Oh, and they're going to dive deeper into it. To me, that's like the best first episode you could have on something like this.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a teaser, quick introduction to the show.
Yeah. And like maybe later on you can always change this stuff, right? Or you can have links to some resources, or you can make it a full on episode and just start with that. Like when I started my podcast, trailers weren't a thing yet for podcasts. Like, and so I launched with 3 episodes and I covered 3 really key topics, and I just launched with all 3 of them. But like, if you're looking to get this thing off the ground as fast as possible, technically that's all you need to do. I always recommend having a few in the backlog, but I would go to the rest of these questions. There's 4 questions here without me pressing anything. The next one is, can you reshape your body after 40? How can men get fit after 40? Can a 40-year-old man get ripped? And I would just find people that have accomplished these things and bring them on as my guests, right? Like,
Yeah.
and for a lot of them, you just have to look at them, right? They have pictures and you're like, hey, yeah, this person, they prove you can get ripped after 40, right? Like, and there's a lot of people that do talk about these topics, but no one's brought it together like this in this podcast because where you look, this podcast doesn't exist. I think we actually have like a real niche here. And like, clearly people are asking real questions on this that we could create episodes that answer these questions.
Nice. So for the strategy, I like the idea of the inner and the outer. So obviously you want to look good, but then what kind of mindset and discipline is required to actually be mentally healthy? So we can have people on that will teach you the strategy and the tactics, and then we can have people on that can talk about diet, lifestyle, nutrition, mental health, and then boom, we have a show that could last forever.
Forever. And that's great, dude. Like that, because yeah, you need both. I mean, here's the thing. Like if you've got this terrible defeated mindset, you're never going to make it. Right.
Mm.
I think this is brilliant. Yeah, you're right. This show could run for hundreds of episodes and never run out of topics that will be very interesting to the demographic that you serve.
So you mentioned you recommend having a few backlogged, so we don't just release one, boom, and then we have another one we have to put out next week. So let's say we 4 or 5. How many should we backlog when we launch?
When I launched, I launched with 3 day of, but I had 13 total in the backlog. And I still run off this idea of trying, quote unquote, to always be 13 weeks ahead. And sometimes that scales down to 7 or 8, but it's very rarely more than 20, right? But like my benchmark in my head is always if I can be about 13 ahead, then I'm always really good. And I still to this day release weekly episodes. And so I always just suggest like figure out what your production looks like if you're doing weekly episodes, which I guess we didn't talk about that. I guess we're pretending like this
does it have to be weekly?
It doesn't. No, but that show I mentioned that I sold and stuff like that was a monthly show. It's huge. I did one 15-minute solo episode per month.
Wow.
And I did interviews as well. Sorry. So some of the interviews were a little bit longer, but that's it. And that worked well. I think that just I don't know. I think that people really like the consistency of things, right? And especially on this type of topic. Like I think men would really enjoy waking up every, let's just say Monday morning, knowing, hey, I'm gonna get to learn to level up my fitness. I'm gonna be fit after 40, right? Like they'll get that. And I know that like for a lot of people, they can't really remember bi-weekly or monthly, but you can always remember, hey, every week this time, like you know how to do that.
Love it. Yeah. Do hard things early in the week, and then you've got a great week in front of you. Okay, so we backlog. We don't necessarily need 13 backlog, but we have some backlog.
Yeah.
Let's do bi-weekly because the thought of this podcast thing on something I haven't started yet, I'm stepping out of myself. Like I'm first time we've ever done this. And you're a busy man. I'm a busy man. So we're going to do bi-weekly. We'll get results bi-weekly. It doesn't have to be weekly, right?
No. Oh yeah, you definitely will. Oh yeah. And if you're doing bi-weekly, then just have, let's just say 5 episodes in the queue, right? Because that's 10 weeks. That's a lot of time, right? Like if you add 1 or 2 more, you're looking at a full quarter, like like ahead. Again, I just like being ahead because at some point something in life is going to happen. Like one time when I didn't do this back years ago, I like lost my voice randomly. It was gone for like a full month. Couldn't record podcast episodes. Like legitimately couldn't talk. And it was like the weirdest thing. But I'm like, man, this is why if I would have just planned ahead, even just a month, I would have been fine. So yeah, let's say 5 episodes were released bi-weekly, and then we can launch and be like taking a break.
My favorite question: how long are the episodes?
Yeah, it's going to depend. So let's like, there's no right answer here. It depends on like two things. One, is it interview? Is it solo? So it's the solo episode. I personally like to keep them under 15 minutes. All the data shows people don't like to listen to Alex longer than that. And the thing is because I share a lot of information. If you're like story heavy, you can go longer. If you're information heavy, you need to go less. If you add a second person, you can typically double it. So for me, like if I'm doing an interview, 30, 35 minutes is like a sweet spot. And people seem to really love it and they stay. And on the dashboard, which we won't get into the analytics right now, but like if you go to your hosting dashboard, Apple, Spotify, it'll show you when people drop off from listening. But again, there's no right or wrong answer. We have to think about it. Let's just say our avatar is, we're passionate about helping men get fit after 40. Let's say our avatar is 43. How old is how old is a 43-year-old's kid usually? Like, what do you have a kid at like 30 or 35? I don't know. Like, so you have a young kid. I'm guessing they're listening while they're taking a kid to school, while they're on their way to work, right? So in my mind, I think it should be a little bit shorter because these people probably, if they're also trying to work out, they probably don't have a ton of time to do all of these things. So we want to kind of bring it shorter. Based off of what I just shared there, I would lean to in my own experience, I'd keep it at like around 30 minutes for an interview and 15 minutes solo. I'd stick with what I have because that just seems like it would work really well for people.
So you saying Ben, you're just doing it wrong is totally fine. Ben Albert can't keep it that short. I like thick. I like depth. I like the story. I like to go really deep. Do you think that's a problem? Am I doing a disservice to my audience if I'm going too long?
No, because you go deep and you go into like the story of it, right? The emotion of it. And for me, I'm like, here's 10 stats for this. That causes the brain to fatigue very fast. So the way I share, and again, like you even got Polished Pro on your personality type as a podcaster. Like you know how to articulate things in a way that people want to receive them. You can definitely speak for longer than I can, and people would stay engaged longer. And I'm not selling myself short. It's just my style, right? And like my style, you can hear I talk fast, talk with a lot of passion. I share a lot of data. It's harder to listen to for a long period of time. You talk at a much better pace, and you dive deep into stuff. So yeah, you could easily go longer. And if it's bi-weekly, maybe people listen in multiple sittings. Maybe they're listening the first half on the way to work today and the second half tomorrow.
And I received the light compliment, but I personally couldn't talk that long. That's why I bring on guests, because I'm just there to lob it up and let the guests hit it out of the park. But as long as the guests can speak, it's the combo platter. So if we're doing solo episodes, that's going to be way more concise. But if we're bringing on a guest that maybe had some struggles, maybe they had a heart issue or this or that, we can allow them to share their story. That might be 30, 45 minutes long.
Right.
And kind of show the journey of implementing the tactics we talked about in the solo episode.
Dude, yeah, I think that's smart. And I would always have the action, right? Like share the story. And this is just me again. Like somehow have like, okay, well, how did you get over this? And what are you doing now? Some sort of practical application for these individuals. Because Fit After 40 for Men, people were like, how do I do that? Right. So we want to always deliver on that. So even if it's at the end, somehow, okay, so how does all this work? Which you'll capture during the story. But yeah, man, like I think I think 40 to 45 minutes would probably be a great amount of time for an interview.
So we kind of talked about topics. We've recorded them. That's all. How do we publish? Do we go wave a magic wand and listeners, or is there a strategy?
Oh, dude, you gave it all away, man. For real. So you need what's called the hosting provider. So the hosting provider is the one that does what's called syndicate to all the platforms. So you're not uploaded, just so you know, podcasters don't upload to Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and thousands of other places every day. Your hosting provider hosts it and handles all that for you. I personally use Buzzsprout, buzzsprout.com. I've been a paying member for, I don't know how long, a very long time now. And I really enjoy it. So basically what I do is when you're launching your podcast, they're going to want your cover art, your title, your description, your episode, along with that episode title and description as well. And then you can start asking them, you have to help them do it, but you start asking them to syndicate it to all the platforms, and you set it up once. And then boom, anytime you post, you can schedule when you want it to go live. You can make it go live at that moment. It's automatically sent to all those places. But I encourage people to always look around, find the hosting provider that works for you, that has the tools that you want. Buzzsprout is really simple, which I don't need a lot of data and stuff like that. So I'm very happy with that one personally. But Ben, I don't know who is it that you use for hosting?
I'm using Podetize.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I've never actually met anyone from Podetize, but do you like it? Is it good? It's been a good service for you?
Yeah, I like the hazards. It's a small, family-owned business, and yeah, it's good. One thing Podetize does that I really love is it lets me have as many RSS feeds as I want. So this is kind of getting in the weeds here, but on Real Business Connections, this is a learn, speak, teach episode. It's like international mentors. I've got Rochester Business Connections, which is all Rochester. I have a segment called Ben's Bites, which is all me. I actually have RSS feeds for every one of those segments. So if a listener only wants to tune in for Rochester, New York, they can type in Rochester Business Connections and tune into just that segment of the show. And Podetize is cool because they're not charging me per stream. So I have a ton of streams that are out. Again, they don't get as many listeners as the main feed, but that's a real cool tool that I can use with them.
I did not realize you said Podetize the first time. I misunderstood what you said. I know Tracy and Tom well. They're phenomenal people. So
awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, like the first time I don't know what I heard, but I was like, what is that? What? Podetize. Yeah, no, that is a great company, and they do a lot to help people as well. So like, and that's one of the things I really respect about them. Like, if you have questions and you're using their service, they're going to help. And I really admire and respect that because that's how the way I like to run my business as well. But great people. Sorry, I do know who they are. They're great. That's another really good one.
So we have a distribution platform. It's called an RSS feed. They're gonna send it to all these places, Spotify, Apple, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have a great SEO optimized title, got a good topic. So I'm gonna go viral overnight, right?
Exactly. No. Somebody actually today asked me this. They changed the name of their podcast and they said, "Hey, they changed it yesterday, and today they said, "Hey, it's not ranking on any search engine anywhere." And first off, you have to wait for the search engines to recrawl this stuff. So I told her, I was like, "Hey, Google doesn't even know that you changed the name of your podcast. Like, it's going to be a little bit before they even realize that. And then to climb in the ranks is going to take a little bit as well." So yeah, like immediately, like when you type in fit after 40 for men, immediately nothing's going to happen. But I can guarantee at some point, especially like within a few weeks, we had the word podcast at the end of it, not in the actual show itself. But if I just go to a search engine, type that in, it's going to be the first thing to come up. And the better you get at answering the questions that come up around the whole idea of like midlife, right? Midlife fitness, the better you get at answering the questions that people are actually asking. You can look at that through Google autofill. You can ask AI like what the topics are that people are asking about. You can look at those people also search. If you're answering those questions and doing a really good job explaining in your description of your episodes, your title and description that you're answering that, man, it might take a little bit. I'm telling you what, like after just a few months, maybe let's just even say a year, like you're going to be so happy with the results that you get from that.
And that's just organic search results.
Oh yeah.
How else can we promote it? Because I was joking, we're not going to go viral overnight.
No. Yeah.
Should we be promote social, email? You tell me. How can we start promoting this baby? Because I know it's going to be big.
Yeah, my favorite way, which is like very unconventional, is to find people to send it to manually. So, like we mentioned earlier, that Reddit thread that's literally for men over 40 trying to get fit. I would just start engaging in there. I'm not going to link spam and be like, new episode out. I'm going to see someone being like, I just can't get abs. Like, what is the deal? And if I just had somebody on, or me and Ben had somebody on the show that like talked about their journey to finally getting abs for the first time at 45, they want to hear that episode. Like, guaranteed they want to hear that episode. And I'd very in a kind of way be like, oh man, I'm like right there. I'm working on it. I'm trying. I did talk to so and so who's actually figured it out. They shared how they did it here, and I'm starting to do that. Hope this adds value to you. You got one new listener today, right? Check. Today is good. And the thing is, like, podcast listenership isn't huge. If you do that every day or every weekday, even for just a year, you're gonna have a very big podcast. And these people are gonna share it as well if it really does deliver on the promise that you have. So I would join as many niche communities on social media and stuff as you can that are around your topic and just start being a pillar there. Like, let yourself be a bit of the icon that drives the podcast. There of course are some paid options as well. I don't know if you want to talk about any of that, Ben, but like that's the organic side.
Yeah. Well, that sounds exhausting. Alex.
Does it? Oh, I love that stuff, man. That's like I love that.
I like to think in the mind of a listener. So I'm a psychopath. Like I 15x everything. But for most people, especially a busy middle-aged person with a young kid or a teenager, being on social media an hour a day just to promote does sound exhausting. You mentioned paid. Like, is there ways that we can trick the system a little bit or get traffic a little bit easier?
Yeah, and I'm sure you've got some ideas around this too. I've seen a lot of people get really good results with doing two things. One is running ads on other podcasts for your podcast. So like I just recently did this for my company actually, which is about podcasting. And I went to Buzzsprout ads. I think it's buzzsprout.com/ads. They happen to be my hosting provider, but you don't need to host with them to use this. And it lets me create an advertisement and then it goes out and finds podcasts might be a good fit. And then both have to have an opt-in saying, yeah, I agree, this is a good fit. But if you jump on every fitness podcast for a little bit and run your own podcast on there, they're already listening to podcasts. They might jump over and listen to yours. Another one that you can do that, which will engage more like search engines, like websites and stuff like that, is Mopod. And if you go to, I believe it's Boost. Let me just make sure I'm right. I think it's boost.mopod.com. Boost.mopod.com. And it's Mopod is spelled MOWPOD. Yep. So boost.mopod.com. For as little as $100, you can work on, let's see, it'll get you an extra 111 people listening. And it'll let you kind of pick what it is that you like, which episode you want to promote and stuff like that. And it'll throw it in relevant search results, websites. It'll be the advertisement where it makes sense. It's not going to be like on all things, all places. But again, for as little as $100, you can do that. And so those are some other ideas around more like paid growth.
So this is a whole episode in itself, but we can guest on other people's podcasts as well. Again, that's a little more time consuming, but should we go on a pod tour?
Oh, I mean, I love that stuff. That would take it back over to organic. But like for me,
Yeah.
again, like just like running an ad on a podcast listeners listen to podcasts. So yeah, get on other shows in that same niche. I know some people at first might not want to do that, like if you're new and stuff like that. But man, if you have any journey, you have a story to share, people want to hear it. Like that's the beauty of podcasting. Like not everyone's looking for celebrities to interview, right? It's actual humans. They've been through something. And so I tell people, yeah, get out there. And then when they ask, well, how do listeners find out more about you? You tell them about your show. That's it. You don't need to tell them about anything else. Be like, go to my podcast and then let your podcast do its work itself.
Dude, there's a lot of tiny nuances that we maybe missed, but I think we did a pretty good job at creating a podcast in 45 minutes or less.
Dude, I think so too, man. I think this is good.
Talking about nuances to close, like we didn't talk about show notes, we didn't talk about production or editing or all these things. Are there any like tools or tips you'd have that we haven't touched on that maybe would go missed or forgotten?
Yeah, I mean, so people always, if it's an interview, how do you record? You use Zoom, I use Riverside, and I don't know much about what it does on this side, but there's all kinds of things that can help you with the show notes and stuff like that. There's tools everywhere. I always tell people find what works for you and stick with it. That's what's important. But like, just think about before you start doing something manually. Like, ask, is there a tool that can help me with this? And to me, the one thing that you can't do that with is your actual voice, right? Yes, there are some things that can fill in like words and stuff like that, even with your voice and editing now. But at the end of the day, your creativity is what you're bringing to the table. So don't spend time creating show notes necessarily or transcript, right? Use a service that can do that type of thing for you and automate as much as you can. So get out there and look. I have my tools I like to use, but I always tell people find what works best for you, what works with your mind, and use that stuff.
Well, you have a whole community of blogs, all sorts of stuff. Is that information already out there, as in like the tools you use and the tools you recommend?
Yeah, you actually mentioned at the start PodScore. So podscore.io, it's just start.podscore.io for anyone who wants to jump straight to the quiz. Totally free. And after that, it gives you links and free access to a course that I have. There's like a PDF, and inside that there's links, and you can click in there and it'll literally show you exactly how I podcast, exactly what I use. And all that's freely accessible. I don't have any paywall or upsell on any of that. It's just my way of giving back. I like people to know that here's what's worked for me. Hopefully it works for you as well.
Is that the best way to support you? Just go and support ourselves with PodScore?
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, like I've done my best to tie my success to the success of the independent podcasters that are in the industry. So for me, just being able to help, really, it comes back to me as well. And it's my way of serving. So I love it. That's the best thing you can do.
And if anybody wants to, if you go to Podcasting Made Simple and you type in the words Ben Albert, you'll find me on that podcast as well. So if you want to get more of me, that's something you can do.
Dude, who doesn't want that? I'm gonna give the actual episode number. We have just a second, right? Let me see here. Let me find that actual episode.
Let me ask you. So you number every single episode?
I do, yeah.
Is that a best practice so people can kind of reference easier?
I don't number it in the title. I just number it on the hosting provider. It gives me the option to say which episode number is this. So yours is, so anyone interested in the episode, if you go to podmatch.com/EP/280, that's talking about increasing your social proof using podcast testimonials. It is such a unique talk that Ben gave. People are still like raving about it. So I highly suggest checking that out. People love it, man.
Cool. And for anybody listening who's like, wow, that was a lot of URLs. My team's great. Go to the description of this episode. Everything is just one click away. Dude, this has been so much fun. I didn't know what was going to happen. Like 2 days ago, I'm like, hey, Alex, you want to just create a podcast on the spot? I've never done that before. And I think we did a pretty good job. If we did that podcast, aside from me being 33, I feel like I'm too young, but if we did that podcast, I really think we would be top of the charts.
Dude, it could be a great show. Here's what we should do. Anyone who heard this that fits the demographic of what we're looking for, create your why and your avatar, send it to Ben, and then you can have the show.
Rock and roll, man. Hey, anything I can do to support you, I will, but I appreciate you coming on again. This has been fun.
Dude, this was a blast. I've, again, never have gotten to do anything like this, and I think this is like extremely, extremely helpful. So thanks again, bro.